Okay, I think we'll make a start. We may get joined by some more people as we go on, and that's fine. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for this evening's webinar. It's really great to have so many of you with us. I think what we'll do is I'll just quickly explain that we can't see you or hear you. Hopefully you can see and hear us. There is a chat box facility, and I encourage you to use that. If you have any questions or queries throughout the presentation, please feel free to ask your questions using the chat box facility, and myself and Christy and Karina will do our best to try and answer those as we go along, and if we miss any, we'll try and pick that up at the end. So please feel free to use that. We'll just do an acknowledgement of country, and then we'll perhaps do some introductions. Okay, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present, as well as to emerging leaders. I extend my appreciation to their cultural heritage, beliefs and spiritual connection with this land. I acknowledge my gratitude that we share this land today, my sorrow for some of the costs of that sharing, and my hope and beliefs that we can move to a place of equity, justice and partnership together. Right. So, like I said, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'll just do a quick few introductions. I'm Michael Down. I'm the Care Practice Manager at Life Without Barriers. So I manage a team of guys whose job it is to help people through the inquiry and assessment process of becoming foster carers. And I'll let Christy and Karina introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Christy. I'm a foster carer and do some casual work with Life Without Barriers, supporting trainings and such. We have been carers for about 6 years now, mostly respite and short-term care, and but are open to long-term care if a child in our home needs to stay on longer. And we are also the Mockingbird hub home providers, which we can probably talk about that more later, but yeah, that's who I am.
Thanks, Christy.
Hi everyone, I'm Karina. I am the Care Engagement Officer for Life Without Barriers. I do all the sort of front of house contact with the people who inquire to be foster carers. I've had a few different roles in Life Without Barriers. So I started out being a child and family practitioner, so I was supporting foster carers with the young people in their homes. Then I went on to do some carer assessment work, and now I sit in the Care Engagement Officer role. So whoever of you decide that this is the journey you'd like to take, I'm sure we will meet at that very early point of contact.
That's great. Thanks, Karina. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening. If you haven't already, if you're able to let us know via the chat box which suburb you're joining us from, or postcode, district, that just helps us in terms of knowing where our marketing has reached. So it's really helpful if you can let us know that information if you haven't already. That'd be great. Okay, so this evening we'll just do an overview of what Life Without Barriers is as an organisation, and about the role of foster carers and how to become a foster carer. So today we'll explore the answers to some questions we regularly hear from people who are keen to find out if fostering is right for them. We'll also look at Life Without Barriers. We'll have a look at, we'll talk about what foster care is, about the children that require foster care, how to become a carer, and any common questions. So Life Without Barriers is a national organisation. It's a very large organisation, and there's a lot of strength because of that. Its headquarters is based in Newcastle in New South Wales. It supports over 4,500 children and young people. It also supports over 3,000 foster and kinship carers, nearly 5,000 supported refugees and asylum seekers, 6,383 people supported through home and community care. It also supports people with disabilities, over 5,000 of those guys, and over 1,800 people are supported through its NDIS programs. It also supports over 1,700 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and it partners with 24 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations. So as you can see, yeah, it's a very big organisation, and does a lot to support a lot of people in a lot of different circumstances, and does a lot of lobbying with government, and plays a very significant role in the lives of a lot of people who need a bit of support for one reason or another. So the organisation is based on 5 values, very important values to our organisation, the foundation to everything that we do, and I think it's part of the reason that makes us so effective and respected in the work that we do. So we like to build relationships with people. I think that's the foundation of everything that we do. Is all the good work that we do is based on having good, solid, professional working relationships with people. We like to be imaginative in what we do. So in terms of foster caring, we're constantly looking at what we can do to promote really positive outcomes for children. So sometimes we like to get a bit creative about that and have a little think outside the box and see what we can do. Being respectful, I think that goes hand in hand with building relationships. I think that helps us to build really positive relationships if we're respectful with people and how we deal and how we interact with people. We like to be responsive, so that's about taking swift action, and being courageous. So, you know, advocating, giving a voice to those people that don't have a voice, and being their voice for them and advocating on their behalf. So that's what we like to do. And if there are values that you guys can get on board with, then you're in the, you hope, potentially going to be with the right organisation. So what is foster care? Foster care is for children who need time away from their family. Foster care provides a safe and supportive home where they can heal and grow. It might be for a night, a week, a year, or until a child reaches adulthood. You might hear foster care talked about as foster care, out-of-home care, or family-based care. The Child Protection Department in South Australia has responsibility for identifying children and young people at risk, and together with the family court system, they may decide that children are best cared for in foster care where the support can't be provided at home or children can't be kept safe. So that's kind of where we come in. Often there'll be plans for children to return back to their family if that's safe to do so and where it's appropriate. Sometimes that's not possible, and sometimes it's more appropriate for children to stay in the care of foster carers. With nearly 50,000 children unable to live safely in home in Australia, we're always looking for foster carers. Okay. Why do children come into foster care? Common reasons for children needing foster care are, unfortunately, abuse, physical, sexual or emotional abuse, neglect, parental mental health conditions, parental death, significant needs within the child. So as you can see, there's a range of different reasons as to why children can end up needing to be cared for outside of the family home. So who are children in care? So children in care aged between 0 and 17. They should stay connected to their culture and identity. They have families who are important to them, and they have all suffered trauma of some sort. We'll talk a little bit more about trauma later on, but it's a very important word, and we'll come back to that a few times throughout this presentation. There's a little picture here of Kieran with a full-time job. Kieran is excited about his plans to buy a house in the future. He entered foster care at the age of 12 and says his foster care has played a big part in who he is today. So, bit of a success story there for Kieran. He's obviously had the right support at the right time, and he obviously had really good foster carers who supported him through his childhood. Are there different types of foster care? Yeah, there are. So there's respite care. Respite care gives children an opportunity to mix in a different social network while their primary carer takes a short break. It's regular or occasional time spent with carers who are not the child's primary carers and is usually planned in advance. So yeah, there's always a need for respite care within our organisation. We do have some foster carers who just provide respite care, and it's really, really appreciated by our own carers and other carers from other organisations. So really, really valuable to have respite carers. Emergency or crisis care. For their own safety, children may need somewhere to stay immediately for a night or even a few weeks. The call for emergency care can happen at any hour of the day or night. So if you're providing emergency or crisis care, you need to be ready to take that call at any time, really, and be able to provide a safe place for a young person who's going through a bit of a crisis situation potentially at that time. Short to medium term foster care. While different situations at home are resolved or until plans for longer term care are made, children need a safe, stable and caring environment where they can strengthen their family relationships so they can return home safely. Kinship foster care. Living with a relative or close family friend can help protect the important connections a child has to their family, culture and community. It can also help children avoid the added trauma of living in an unfamiliar environment. Long-term foster care. Some children in long-term care are not expected to return to live with their family on a full-time basis. Foster carers who provide long-term care commit to parenting children toward adulthood and provide them with stability and permanency. I mean, you often find in those cases that foster carers remain caring for children beyond their 18th birthday and well into adulthood, and they just become part of the family and part of the furniture, and in many ways that's kind of the way it should be, really. So we do see that quite a lot. Sorry, let me just go back to that previous slide. We do sometimes, you may provide, maybe if you have capacity, you may end up providing care for a sibling group. That does sometimes happen as well. We'll perhaps talk about that a little bit more as we move on. In South Australia, we talk about foster carers as being general or specialist. I don't really like the word general, but it's a common word that is used. I don't think there's anything general about foster carers, as it happens. I think they're all very special people. But it's more to do with the children that are in their care and the level of need that they have. That's what's being reflected there. So if you're a specialist carer, the needs of the child in your care may be more significant than those that a generalist carer would provide care for. If you are looking to become a specialist carer, we could explore that within your assessment, and we'd be looking to see if we could evidence the knowledge, skills and experience required to become a specialist carer. So you'd also need to be more flexible and readily available. You'd receive higher reimbursements. You're provided with more regular and intensive support and coaching. You receive additional training. You have access to Life Without Barriers therapeutic consultation services. So yeah. So these are some of the, you may be required to look after a child with learning difficulties, intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, communication difficulties, or complex behaviours resulting from trauma. So resulting from the experiences they've gone through as a child, which has impacted on their development. Okay. So, what is our approach to foster care? So, if you become a foster carer with Life Without Barriers, you'll hear quite a lot about care, and you'll receive training in relation to care once you're approved as a foster carer. So this was a model that was created at Cornell University in America, and it's something that we're taking on as an organisation because we feel that the main pillars of care are a good sort of structure for us to put around the way we do things. So we like to be relationship based. So we'd be looking at how we build trusting, meaningful relationships to help foster emotional and social confidence. We'd try and be developmentally focused in our strategies, matching strategies for change with where the child is at developmentally to change, but not overwhelmed. So in all of these things, what we're considering is where the child is at in their own development and where they're at in relation to the trauma that they will have experienced prior to coming into our care. So we have to think about things a little bit differently to how we would perhaps think about things in relation to our own children, if indeed you have your own children. So we have to kind of almost put some of that stuff to one side in terms of kind of the more traditional parenting techniques, and sometimes we have to consider some other ways of doing things in light of what the child has previously experienced and how they are as a result of that. So we like to be trauma informed in everything that we do. Consider the impact that trauma has on a child's development and modifying our expectations and interactions accordingly. We like to be family involved, so involved in the family and supporting cultural and community connections to help a child form their identity. So that's about maintaining contact with birth family and supporting that contact. Competency centered, so we help children to develop the skills, knowledge and attitudes they need to negotiate everyday life. And we are ecologically orientated, so we like to providing a caring and supportive environment with helpful models to show children how to care for themselves and others. So it's about providing a really good environment, a healthy environment for them to grow up in. So this part of the presentation doesn't normally work particularly well. So these videos don't play for whatever reason when we do this presentation. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that these are sent out to you in the follow-up email that you'll all receive after this presentation. So you can have a look at these videos in your own time, but I would encourage you to have a look. They're really interesting. So Stacey's a former looked after young person who talks about her experiences as a foster child and a looked after child. Chris and Sophia are a same-sex foster couple who talk about how they came to the decision to become foster carers and the journey that they've been on. And Gwen also kind of came into fostering almost by accident, and talking a little bit about the experience that she's had of looking after teenagers, which is really interesting as well. So sorry that they're not going to work tonight, but please have a look at those links in your own time. They're really good videos. What do we look for in carers? So foster carers are very special people. It's very difficult to sort of pin down exactly what it is that makes them so special. But attributes of a great carer. We need carers with attributes and beliefs that we know are good for children. Some of these may seem obvious, but they are not always as easy to find. So you need to have plenty of time to spend with children. You need to want to help children return safely home to their families if that's their plan, if that's in their plan. You need to believe in children. All children will do well if they get the right help, care and support. You need to want to share your home and your resources with children who need help. You need to like trying to understand why children do things. And if you can help a child manage tough feelings of missing their family. And you need to believe it is important that children feel included in your family when they are in foster care. So if you think you can do those things, then you've probably got the right attributes to become a really good foster carer and make a difference in the lives of a young person who would really benefit from having that kind of support around them. having patience and understanding, acceptance and availability, commitment, a flexible approach, time to give, and a commitment to maintaining and strengthening family relationships. So if you think you can do that, then make sure you contact us after this, and we'll have a chat about the next steps. So who can be a carer? It's likely that you can. Carers can be partnered or single, with or without children, from all backgrounds and cultures. Your ability to care for and nurture a child is what really matters. So about you must be over 25 with some life experience. You need to be well and healthy, or well and healthy enough to look after a child. You need to have a regular source of income. It's not great, not ideal to rely on the income of being a foster carer. From any culture, faith, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, gender identified expression, that's okay. You know, none of that would preclude you from becoming a foster carer. Single or in a relationship. You need to be willing to undergo background checks. About your home and family. You can be with or without your own children. You can rent or own your own house, but you do need to have a spare room in your home. That's you definitely need to have that. Everyone who lives in the home, who's in your family, lives in the home, needs to be on board with the idea of looking after some children. So, how do you become a foster carer? I think Karina can probably take you through this. I'm just dropping Karina in it, but Karina does this for a day job. So, Karina, do you want to tell people if they're interested after this? How do they go?
So I'm more than happy to do that, because most of the people, if they are interested, will have contact with me. So when you decide that you're ready to take the next step, you can contact us and we will talk you through what you can expect from the process. So we have our central inquiry team who field initial contact. So that's who you'll probably speak with initially. They'll have a big chat with you around your current circumstances, other people living in the home. If you've got children, we'll probably ask, you know, how do your children feel about this? Is this something that you've had a conversation with them? We find out, you know, those really basic things like, do you have a spare bedroom? You know, that is really important. You know, I've had some people come to me and say, oh, I only have my children, you know, 1 week on, 1 week off, so they could use that bedroom. Well, in theory, that would be great, but we do require the young person to have their own bedroom. So then they've got that own sense of ownership over their belongings in that particular space. So yeah, so you have your phone interview with the central inquiry team. If you tick all the boxes and you're happy to proceed, they'll then refer you to me at the local office here in Unley. So I'll then give you guys a call, have a bit of a chat about what you can expect from me. So I will come and see you guys in your home, have another chat about what steps are involved in the initial, what I call the pre-assessment process. So that's me coming out, seeing you, having a bit of a walk through your home, doing a home safety check, which is pretty basic, talk you through the training and the screening checks. So we talk through the working with children's checks are required for anyone over the age of 18 living in the home. We also do ask you to have a chat with your support network. So anyone who's a regular visitor to your home that's over the age of 18, they will also need to undergo a working with children's check as well. So we also do a child protection history check, but that's something that we can talk about when I come out and do the home visit. It's part of a bit of a paperwork pack that I bring out at that first visit. So I basically book you into your training. I'm that sort of primary contact person who kind of holds your hand and walks you through the process. I'm the person who can talk you through any challenges that you might be experiencing, anything that we need to be aware of in terms of delivering that training. Sometimes it's really useful for us to know whether you've got any, you know, personal trauma that might be triggered. We had someone who recently did training had a hearing impairment, so that was really important for us to know when we're delivering training. And then once you've done that, completed through that pre-assessment phase, you've done your training, you've done your screening checks, you've done all your paperwork for us, then I hand you over to a carer assessor who will conduct a series of sort of semi-formal, semi-informal interviews where we have a a couple of different frameworks that we use to assess people as we are instructed by the DCP. So you can expect potentially 6 to 10 interview sessions, and that's totally dependent on your availability, how much you like to talk, and what kind of life you've had, whether you've got a partner. Those assessments always take a little bit longer. So once you've done your series of interviews, your carer assessor will then put together a very lengthy report that then gets signed off internally by Life Without Barriers and then gets sent to the Department for Child Protection for their review and their formal approval. So that's kind of the assessment process in a very large nutshell. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Karina. That was perfect. Thank you. So some of our most frequently asked questions. I'm single. Can I foster? Yes, you can. Not a problem. Families come in all shapes and sizes, as do foster families. We're a same-sex couple. Can we foster? Yes, of course. Life Without Barriers values a diverse community of foster carers. Can I foster even though I don't have my own children? Yes. We know that having experience interacting with and caring for children is useful when new to fostering, but that can be gained in many ways other than parenting. Even if you've never cared for children, having personal attributes that would make you a good carer is what we look for. About your home, do you have a spare room? Yes, you do. It says in most instances there, I think they're probably talking about perhaps very small babies who could potentially share a room, but in most instances you would need to have a spare room. Do I need to own my home to be a foster carer? No, however, you need to demonstrate that your premises are safe and suitable to foster. You can be renting in public housing, paying off your home, or own your home outright. Can I have my own children and foster other children? Yes. Your family situation is considered when making decisions about the age and needs, level of children you may foster. Generally speaking, children placed with caring families will be younger than your own children. Will all my family be involved in the assessment process? Yes, everyone in your household will be part of the assessment process. It is important to make sure everyone knows what fostering is and is on board with the decision to apply. So, how are children matched to foster carers? So, we obviously get to know you pretty well through the assessment process. We ensure that children are matched to carers or those that they are able to best support. We take into account their unique needs and parts of their identity that might be a good fit with your family and help create a sense of belonging. So what we're trying to do is match children's needs with your capabilities and strengths, and trying to create a good match. We want to set people up with the best opportunities to succeed, and so we're not wanting to set anyone up to fail from the start. So it's we try and do everything we can to try and make sure it's a good match. Can I choose the age and gender of the child? Our assessors work with you to recommend the best fit, considering your skills, preferences and household dynamics. Regarding the age, gender and needs of children you are approved to care for. It's important to keep in mind that having a very specific preferences regarding age and gender can make it more difficult to make a good match. So that's a conversation you can have with your assessor through the assessment process, and they'll work out with you what's going to work best with you and your family, and that will be included in the assessment report that goes to the DCP.
That's a really good point, Mike, about having that conversation with your assessor, because while you will be asked right at the first point of inquiry, hey, what kind of care would you like to provide? What kind of gender and age group are you thinking of? It's something that can be explored right throughout the assessment, and you can talk to your assessor about, you might have a general idea. Your assessor might go, hey, you've got a really great skill set for emergency care or short-term care, but you hadn't quite thought of that. So, it might be that you might be suitable or have really great attributes to provide, 2 different types of care. So it's important to know that you can do more than just one type of care as well.
Yeah, you might change how you feel about that as you go through the process, or you might learn a bit more about different types of care that can be provided, and you might change how you feel as a result of that. So yeah, don't be scared to have conversations with your assessor around that, and you know, it's okay to change your mind as you progress. It's also fine. Do children in care have ongoing relationships with their family? In most cases, yes, they do. We know that maintaining connection with family in whatever way possible is part of ensuring good long-term outcomes for children in care. Our care team will help you find the best ways to support family relationships and ensure it is safe for all. So it's really good to support young people in maintaining contact with their birth family. We find that it's really good for the young people, it's really good for placement stability, and it's really good for the outcomes of children as well. What happens if a placement isn't working out? Stability is key for children in order to do well and thrive. It's not in the child's best interest to be moved continuously, so we need resilient carers who are able to work with our care team to push through the harder days. If ending a placement has to happen, we'll always be there to make sure goodbyes are done well, and obviously we'll provide support to you guys as the foster carers, and we'll provide support to the young person as well and try and manage that difficult situation as best we can, if that does happen. How long does the assessment process take? Little bit. The assessment is an important step in making sure the environments we provide for children are safe and nurturing, and that applicants are ready to take on the role of a carer. The process usually takes around 5 to 6 months from application to approval, but can differ depending on circumstances. I think what I'd like to add to that is that there's a period of time. So if you were, after this, if you were to register some interest in potentially becoming a foster carer, you'd hear from Karina in the next few days, and she'd start taking you through the inquiry part of the process. That part of the process can take several months in itself. There's a few variants within that can cause some delays in terms of background checks and getting information back from you guys and doing interstate checks and the various checks that would have to be done. So once all of that inquiry stage is completed, then we go into the assessment phase. There's some very strict guidelines, timeframes in place around the assessment phase, which the DCP set. So our actual assessment period is 5 months. So that bit is very well defined. The inquiry phase can take a bit longer. And then once the assessment's completed, it goes off to a department within the DCP called CARU, and they have to approve the assessment, approve your approval as a foster carer. And again, that can take it can take a few days, it could take a couple of months, so it depends how busy they are. So all in all, the whole process can take around 12 months, depending on, it can be quicker than that, it could even be a little bit longer than that.
It's so individual on anyone's circumstances. You know, if people are really quick at getting their paperwork back to me and I can lodge their screening checks straight away, you know, it just makes everything go that much smoother and that much quicker. So it is depending on your own personal circumstances. Yeah. So yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, if you haven't got lots of household visitors who have all lived in various states and need lots of interstate checks, and if you haven't spent 6 years living abroad and have to do overseas checks, you know. So some people's situations are more simpler than other people's. So, you know, sometimes takes a bit longer, but it's important to remember that fostering is all about timing. If ever you need to take a break from the process and revisit it later, that's also okay. So just because we start a process doesn't mean we have to then, you know, juggle all the way through to the finish line. Talk to Karina. If your circumstances change, something's changed in your family situation, we can always put it to one side, come back to it, pick it up again a bit later on. That's also fine. Okay, what support do you get as a carer? So it can be difficult to comprehend the experiences children bring with them. So it's important that carers feel supported and confident in their role. So you will get ongoing training throughout your time. You'll be part of some training prior to being approved as foster carers, and then once you're approved as a foster carer, you'll have continuous learning and development throughout your life as a foster carer. You will also receive clinical support. We have an in-house clinical team, so depending on the needs of your child in your care, you can access support from our clinical team, can help give you advice and guidance about how to best care for the child in your care. We also have 24-hour on-call support from our social workers. Respite, you may be able to access respite where possible. You also get financial reimbursement for being a foster carer. And you can be part of the foster carer networking as well. So there's various ways of interacting with foster carers within our organisation. Lots of opportunities to meet with people doing the same kind of thing as you. And I think Christy will probably testify to this, that kind of peer-to-peer support is invaluable in the role of a foster carer. Social events and programs. Yeah, again, there are lots of opportunities to meet up. There's I went down to something in the summer at what was that place down at West Beach, Christy, where they had the water slides and the barbecues and what have you. That was good. That was a good day.
The big wedgie.
Yeah, the big wedgie, that was it.
Great big water slides.
Yeah, it's I forgot my babies that day, so I didn't get on that. Okay, we also encourage carers to form supportive peer relationships through peer networks and approaches such as the Mockingbird family.
Can I quickly add about the support workers, the child and family practitioners? I just thought I was speaking about this in training last week and wanting people to know that, yeah, you have an allocated support worker, child and family practitioner, and that person will be your point of contact once you're approved and you've got a young person in your care. They have a mandate. We're funded, our funding body tells us we need to be out and seeing you guys face to face on a regular basis. But that's not it, it's not where the contact ends. You can call them, email them, you can contact on-call support. They are there for you any time. It's not just that visit once a fortnight or once every 6 weeks. They're your person that you can call, email or text if you need support anytime.
That's great. Thanks, Karina. Also just wanted to talk briefly about the Mockingbird programme. It's a new way of doing things in fostering that Life Without Barriers has recently launched in South Australia. It's an idea about it takes a village to look after a child. So it's about creating little clusters of fostering families who work together in a constellation to support each other and provide care for the children in that constellation. So I think we've got, Christy will probably correct me in a minute, I think we've got 2 or 3 of these constellations at the moment.
2 so far.
2 at the moment. I think there's plans to launch a 3rd one at some point. Yeah. So again, that's something that once you're approved as a foster carer, there may be opportunities to get involved in one of these. I think that's something that your supervising social worker could perhaps talk to you about once you're approved. But it's a really exciting way of doing things. It's a slightly different way of doing things. And it's interesting to see how that develops for us as an organisation and within South Australia. So it's really exciting project. So something to keep an eye on. Okay, where to from here? So if after this webinar tonight you're interested in taking the next step, then have a look at our website. It's a really good place to start. There's a lot more information on there. If you'd like to talk to a foster care specialist, you can contact the team on 1300 592 227 or contact them on that email address that is there. We'll leave you some fact sheets and all the information you need. We'll put that in the follow-up email that will be sent out to you all. If you're not ready just yet, why not join our mailing list and learn more about fostering and help prepare you when the time is right. So you know, guys, if that's kind of the end of the presentation from me. If you've got any questions for us, then feel free to put those in the chat box, and we'll do what we can to answer those questions. You got any questions?
I was just going to quickly add, while people are kind of thinking of questions, hopefully, you know, is that we're always open to feedback and suggestions and things that might, you know, we could do better as well, you know. And I recently did an online training session that felt a bit bumpy, and I put out to the participants, please give me feedback, let me know what worked well, what didn't work well, so that when I plan the next one, we can kind of adapt accordingly. So, you know, we're always open to feedback, and we're always open to constructive criticism if things just aren't working well. So all right, we do have a question. Someone has a rather large dog, might lick a child, is that okay? Lick a child to death, is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I've not heard of a child being licked to death, but I guess as part of your assessment, we would look at family pets, and if there's any kind of risk assessments that need to be done around that, that will form part of the assessment process.
I like to put myself in the shoes of a little person. When I come and I knock on your door and I do my home visit, I put myself in the shoes of a little person and think, what would it be like, you know, for them walking into the home. And sometimes it's just a matching consideration. So thinking about a young person that might be better suited to a larger animal, definitely.
Yeah, and giving consideration to how we introduce, you know, new little children to family pets, and how we do that, perhaps do that gradually over a period of time and get them used to each other. So all of those things can be talked about within the assessment process. So Karina, I'm in my early 60s. Is that too old to foster? I have lots of time and love to give.
Absolutely, we would love to have you. You know, age is not a huge barrier, depending on your, you know, capabilities, your availability, your flexibility. You know, if someone's got significant, you know, physical health issues, then, you know, it might be a further conversation that we might have around the implications. But yeah, definitely age is certainly not a huge barrier.
Brilliant, thank you.
Someone said they've got 2 spare bedrooms. Could I ask for siblings so they could stay together? We do have siblings that can stay in the same room for respite. That's very much a case by case scenario. Some siblings, they can share a bedroom and that works quite well. Other siblings cannot. So it's very case by case.
Someone's put a question in the Q&A section. I'm interested in respite care as a first step. Can you please elaborate on what this might look like?
Oh, Christy, you'd be probably a good person to elaborate.
So yeah, we do a lot of respite care, and that is usually pre-arranged, you know, up to a month in advance, and it's often the same children will come every month for a weekend. Some families don't need it that much, so it's once in, you know, each school holidays they might come for a few days. Occasionally it's a phone call on a day saying, hey, this family's, you know, just had to go into hospital, they've had an emergency, the child needs somewhere to stay overnight, and it might be a child that we do regularly do respite for, or sometimes it's a child that we've never met before, they don't have a respite carer, so we've just stepped in for that specific situation. But generally it is a pre-arranged regular thing, and you get to know the family, you get to know the child, so it feels like a natural, you know, extended family sleepover special thing, rather than kind of being sent away for a break. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
When you provide respite care, Christy, are children able to go on outings with you, for example, church trips, etc.? Somebody was asking.
Yep, they just join in whatever we do. We kind of play it by ear. We do attend church, and depending on the children, Some of them, we think that they might find being in church overwhelming and stressful. So we might just have that week off church, do something else instead. But depending on the child, and we think they'd love the activities in Sunday school or whatever, then we'll take them along and just really pay attention to what they are comfortable with and what works for them. But yeah, we out-of-pocket expenses for respite care. We go to lots of parks. We go to the beach and explore the rock pools. We tend to not be a family that spends a lot of money on outings. So when we've got kids in our care, they join in what we do, and they usually love it. They love that, the nature stuff, going to Kaipo and, you know, exploring the forest and stuff like that. So you can definitely do it without having to spend huge amounts of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody's asked, they don't have children. I don't have children of my own and would be better with an older child or teenager. Can I request an older child rather than a younger toddler? Yeah, absolutely. And have those conversations with your assessor as part of your assessment. And, you know, we can put recommendations in terms of matching as part of your completed assessment. Yeah.
And there's a huge need for carers to take teenagers. They can be quite tricky to place. So that's definitely something that would be appreciated if you say you're interested in that.
Well, I get very excited when we get people inquiring about providing respite, because we do have a lot of kids that, you know, they're looking, or a lot of households are looking for respite. So I get very excited if people are willing to you know, have a young person, but only maybe one weekend a month or every second weekend. Yeah, great. We'd love that.
Yeah. And I find it is a fantastic way to kind of wet your toes and just kind of get a feel for foster care, because it's not so intense. You're not dealing with the DCP or family access. You get to kind of play the fun auntie and uncle or grandparent role. And the kids just love the novelty of a different place to visit. So it can be a really fun, kind of easy way to get a feel for it and get to know kids. So it's not just this abstract idea of these children you hear about in the media, but you actually get to know some real kids and go, actually, they're just kids. They just need a bit of extra support.
Thanks, Christy. Somebody's asking, can the foster child go to the same school as my children? It would make life easier and make them feel more part of the family if they can go to the same school. What I would say in relation to that is that sometimes when a young person initially comes into your care, it's actually best for the young person to, if they're able to maintain the place at the school they're currently at, then that's potentially a place of stability and certainty for them at that time. As plans become more permanent or longer term, if the plans become that they're going to stay in your care longer term, then that's probably the time to start having conversations with the DCP around, you know, can this young person move to the school that's at the bottom of the street, because that's going to work better with family life. But so yes and no. You may be asked to support a young person to maintain a current placement at school to start with, and there may be opportunities to move to a closer school further down the line. Okay, what are the requirements for providing care for kids with disabilities?
We do, we kind of explore depending on the particular child. So while our mandatory training is sort of very kind of foundational and basic in terms of, you know, caring for children with trauma, I recently had a couple that were looking to provide respite. The young person that we matched had a hearing impairment. And so then I was looking into link them in with another agency in the community that could teach them Auslan. So we do try and explore other particular training specific to the needs of the child. So it's very case by case. Again, it depends on the needs, but absolutely something that we do look at as an extra measure if it's needed.
Cool, thanks, Karina. I heard it mentioned with fostering for the child to be younger than your youngest child. Is that correct? Our youngest is 2 and we're looking at respite. Yeah, I think generally speaking, if we're looking at short-term or long-term placements, that's kind of rule of thumb. But with the idea of potentially providing respite, we can potentially be a little more flexible around that. Is that right, Karina?
Yeah, I think it would really depend on your circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't like sort of saying a blanket no to things. I think it's something that we can explore further. So it's getting to know you guys, getting to know your children, and feeling what might be something that would work well for your family and your household.
Yeah, let's certainly have a conversation about that, Bree. That'd be good to talk that one through. Okay. Has anybody else got any more questions? Okay, I think we'll perhaps wrap things up there, guys. Listen, I just want to thank you all for taking the time out of your evenings to come along and listen to this webinar. I really, really appreciate that. Even if you choose not to progress any further with fostering after today, I still thank you for your time, and I really appreciate that. If you want to speak to any family or friends about what you've heard today and point them in our direction, that would also be appreciated. And if any of you have listened to the webinar today and are really keen to get involved in what we do at Life Without Barriers, then please contact us, and Karina will be in touch in the next few days to start a conversation with you about what the next steps look like. So thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. Thank you, Christy and Karina, for supporting me this evening. Much appreciated, as always. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.